I finally feel like I've done a responsible job in figuring out how I know. So now I can finally start to love reality. So now I call myself an exuberant realist. But so, and usually what happens is that if I have enough time, is people around me start dancing.
There's absolutely no question that your name got brought up fairly early on in the corner because of your work. And then you've been in a few conversations here in the corner because of your work, because you're very much at home in terms of a lot of what this community has been chewing on for a long time. A lot of, give John Vervaeke a lot of credit with his 4 Ps of knowing and his cognitive science and all of that stuff. Can you give, and a difficulty of this is, I think for many people, if they want to live knowing better, there needs to be something much more akin to an exorcism that has to take place into them.
Yeah, that's the epistemological therapy.
Yes.
And so that's why I like to do workshops. They had to be dialogues. I feel like the story thing doesn't always help us because it kind of sidetracks that the problem is epistemological. Because, if you put a story in Polanyian terms, a story is a temporal pattern, a temporal integrative pattern. But stories themselves aren't doing it. But actually, I think a better picture is face-to-face encounter. Yes. So, you and I looking at each other right now, you're not looking in my eyes. You don't see me looking in your eyes. But if we were face-to-face and we were looking into each other's eyes, you can't do that and not be changed.
Right.
And see, stories can sound like, well, I'll tell my little tale and you tell your little tale. But encounter is, like Buber said, it's being addressed by the other. It's I, you. Mm-hmm. And you love this as a pastor, I know, because it's that intimate facial communion that changes people.
Yep.
And part of my point, a big part of my point is knowing isn't just about other people. It's about birds and gardens, and even ordinary dumb objects. It's about knowing them too. And I'm saying it needs to be person-like. Mm-hmm. It needs to be person-like. So it needs to be encounter-esque. Well, stories can kind of get in the way of that. People, it's kind of, and story doesn't exactly give us the epistemology that we need. Once we have the epistemology that we need, then we can understand how stories work, epistemologically. But we got to fix the epistemology.
What is that?
Are you saying that stories give a false sense of knowing?
No, I'm saying you can have a story and not have encounter.
Oh, yes. I would agree with that.
And sometimes the storytelling can get in the way of encounter. Actually, John Stanley, who now thinks the whole book is about him, he founded this listening evangelism cafe. And in the volunteer training, you were trained to listen, which means shut the heck up.
Yeah.
And don't match their story with yours.
Yeah.
And if you're tempted to, bite your tongue.
Yeah.
The good comes.
So
reality shows up. Reality shows up, walks into the room, as Newbegin says about Jesus. That's how you know you've made contact with reality. You just got taken over.
One of the things that you finally learn as a pastor is one of the most important things you can do for people is just simply to listen to them.
Mm-hmm. Listening is the real, which is what John said. Active listening. Gene Genlin says people don't even have a story till you listen to it. And what I learned from John at the cafe is people have a false story. And I likened it to like a pump, an old-fashioned pump, that you got to keep pumping until the water runs clean. And then what John would say is, at that point, people save themselves.
Oh, they do. They do. Schools keep doing what they're doing. Professional education keeps doing what it's doing.
We've got to subvert it all the time. We do. We have to subvert it. Subversion. It's got to be subversion. And I love the word disarm, just being disarming, because I love the double meaning. You know, it's like, you know, people just throwing down their arms because it's so much better. That's what I like. You know, you can subvert it. You can have the people over. You know, you can say, hey, let's hang out after the class and talk about this. You know, when at Covenant Seminary, when I first taught this, those guys stood around for hours after class, working at the board, talking to me, talking to each other, talking to third. They went home, they walked their dogs together, and they were still talking about it. They still get together every year and talk about it. Right? So in other words, you can subvert the dynamic. And in particular, because it's killing us. It's killing us. It's killing mission. It's killing the church. You know, it's killing business. You know,
it's killing medicine.
Yep.